Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to set our phasers to stun. And I just did.
Congratulations. Nice work. Jaymie Matthews joining us, of course, UBC astrophysicist. And we always just sort of throw it open to what he wants to talk about. And today, all about Star Trek. Hi, Jaymie. How are you?
Not bad.
I'm worried you might die towards the end of the segment
red
because
ensign.
you're an ensign.
That's right. I'm one of the red shirts, but I figured
now,
I'd take
why
my
are we
chances.
talking Star Trek today?
Well, yeah, we're talking Star Trek because we're talking Captain Kirk, and here's Captain Kirk as he appeared in 1966.
Handsome devil.
Yeah, and here he is as he appeared this week. Captain Kirk turned 80 this week.
He looks like an inflated balloon. That's about it. He just looks like someone just
He kind of looks like Regis Philbin in
but his
the
face looks exactly the same. Okay, so he turned 80.
Yeah, but a couple of weeks before his birthday, he actually delivered a present to fellow space explorers, the crew of the Space Shuttle Discovery, the last flight, the last voyage of the Discovery Shuttle, and he gave them their last wake-up call.
That is
in
so
orbit.
awesome.
And here it is. Shatner's wake-up call to Space Shuttle Discovery.
Space, the final frontier.
These have been the voyages of the Space Shuttle Discovery. Her 30-year mission to seek out new science, to build new outposts, to bring nations together on the final frontier, to boldly go and do what no spacecraft has done before.
I bet the guys up there and girls loved that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
and this is one of the things I love about William Shatner is he's always embraced the Star Trek thing. He's never run away from it, and he's always just had fun with it. And how awesome is that he did that to Discovery?
And I mean, it's hard to imagine in 1966. I was a kid, and this was the stuff I dreamed of. And that science fiction has become science. It's become a reality.
Now let's talk about Star Trek and the science of Star Trek and what we're using today that they use. Where are we going to start?
So, the Star Trek universe in the original series was set in the 23rd century. But of course it was started in 1966. And it turns out that one of the pieces of technology in Star Trek was the communicator. And the communicator we better now know as the cell phone.
Right.
And, it's just like...
You have a communicator?
Well,
or
I was worried. I hate it when people's cell phones go, oops, sorry, I'm getting a call. Captain here.
Captain, shall I beam down an armed party?
No, I think I can handle the situation.
Oh, wow.
Captain out.
You are going deep today.
Replicas of the communicators. But if you look at what we had is, the flip phones, especially the Motorola ones that we all had, they're almost identical.
Well, it's funny you should say Motorola because the very first cell phone, the very first mobile phone, was invented by a Motorola engineer, Dr. Martin Cooper. They called it the Brick for obvious reasons.
I had one.
And he was inspired by Star Trek. He said, he saw Captain Kirk with one of these and said, we should have one of those. And so he led a team that built the first cell phone, and he made the first call in 1973, the first mobile phone call in 1973. Who do you think he called?
Ghostbusters.
Mom.
Yeah, his mom, his wife, his girlfriend, Nobel Prize Committee. No. He called his rival engineer, Joel Engel at Bell Labs, who was also trying to invent a cell phone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a little twist of the knife, rub the face in it a little bit. Oh, that's funny.
This is him today. And the one thing that Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek didn't predict, they predicted the technology of cell phones. They didn't predict the sociology and the economics of it. Only Starfleet personnel had communicators in those days. They never imagined that everybody would have a communicator.
Yeah. It is amazing.
I'm the only one that doesn't. I refuse to have a cell phone.
You don't have a cell phone?
No, my life is ruled by voicemail and email. I don't want it to follow me around anymore. I've got a communicator.
Right, he doesn't need one.
Bridge, this is the guy. It's for Jaymie, I think, actually.
There you go.
Okay, on to other things. The communicator, obviously, they nailed.
Another piece, the warp drive. If you're going to travel between the stars, you've got to travel fast.
Now, this would come in pretty handy, but we don't have this.
We don't. And in fact, the way that the Enterprise travels in Star Trek isn't really allowed by physics. They travel faster than the speed of light through space. You see the stars flying past. That, as far as physics as we understand it, would be impossible. Actually, George Lucas in Star Wars got it closer to right because they travel between the stars in hyperspace by taking a shortcut, either bending the geometry of space-time or taking a kind of a shortcut through a wormhole to another.
But the warp drive itself.
The warp drive itself, the engine, if you're going to travel between the stars, you need a lot of power. And so the engines have to be powerful. And this is the warp drive equation that they use in Star Trek.
Everybody knows this equation.
This looks familiar.
MC squared.
It has its own Facebook page. It's an equation that has its own Facebook page. But hardly anybody knows what it means. This is actually Einstein's equation. And what it's telling you, the E stands for energy, the M stands for mass. It's telling you how much energy you get if you can completely destroy a certain amount of mass. The C, in this case, stands for the speed of light. We ran out of letters in the alphabet, so we just call it C. Now, C is a big number. Speed of light's a big number. You square it, you multiply it by itself, even bigger number. You get a lot of energy for a little bit of mass. Let me just let you know how much. Take a loonie, weighs 7 grams. If you could utterly destroy all the matter in a loonie, not burn it, melt it, produce a little bit of energy, but leave ash and so on, obliterate it, you would produce enough energy for all the power needs of 6,000 Canadian households for an entire year.
For a loonie.
That's amazing.
A big bang for the buck.
So why don't we do that?
Well, we are working.
Good question, Fiona.
Well, Jaymie, let's solve the world's
problems. Let's go.
That is a good question. The reason is, what are you going to do to fuel the warp drive to get all that energy?
I'm not stupid.
The Enterprise didn't run on loonies, although William Shatner sometimes might be qualifies. No. You use antimatter. Now that sounds like science fiction, but it's science fact.
Everybody's heard of antimatter, but what actually is it? How do you use it or capture it or whatever you want to do with it?
Well, so we're made up of atoms of ordinary matter, of protons and neutrons and electrons. And the protons have positive charge, the electrons have negative charge. And antimatter is a proton that's like a proton in every other way, except it's got the opposite charge. An electron has the opposite charge. So it's a proton with a negative charge. We call it an antiproton. And an electron with a positive charge, we call it a positron. Now, it turns out if you take a proton and an antiproton, or a positron and an electron, and you bring them together, wham!
You get a huge amount.
You produce all of that gets annihilated and turned into energy according to E equals mc squared. And so that's what drives that. You bring together matter and antimatter, and you produce energy in the form of gamma rays. That sounds like Marvel Comics science fiction, but that's also real physics.
And did I see through girls' clothes?
Well, the problem with the antimatter, though, is, of course, if it comes in contact with matter, bang. So how do you store it?
How do you capture it?
How do you get lightning in a bottle? Well, you do it in a magnetic bottle, and that's how they did it in Star Trek. There's engineer Geordi.
Why didn't we do that?
Exactly. It's like a magnetic containment field, which keeps the antimatter from being in contact to the matter until you want to funnel it in for your engine. Now, and Scotty and Forbes, oh my God, the containment field is going to break down. And this is also not science fiction, because we do it today, not for matter-antimatter annihilation, but for testing fusion reactors. This isn't the kind of reactor that we're worried about at Fukushima in Japan right now. It's the kind of process that makes the sun shine, and if we can harness it, it will be a wonderful energy source. And here is a prototype, an experiment in Russia for a fusion reactor where you're heating up gas to the temperature at the center of the sun, like 16 million degrees Celsius. You can't put it in contact with any metal because it'll just vaporize. And you keep it in a magnetic bottle, just like the warp engines on the Enterprise, and here's that magnetic bottle on.
Jaymie, unfortunately, we have to stop you before we get to one of my favorite, teleportation. We're out of time.
We don't have time to teleport?
Oh, I don't know.
Right? Did I get that right, everyone?
Yeah, we don't have time.
Oh, well.
It was like listening to the best scientific
but Jaymie wanted to tell you that teleportation is possible and right around the... No, it's not.
We'll have to save that for next time.
All right.
Thanks so much, Dr. Jaymie. We're going to take a quick...